Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something pretty exciting. We're building a completely new, totally intuitive mental model of how genetics and inheritance actually work. You know, if you've ever felt like biology was just this giant, overwhelming list of vocabulary words you had to memorize, I want you to just toss all of that out the window right now. Today, we're focusing strictly on first principles. We want to really grasp the beautiful, organized logic behind why we look the way we do and exactly how that biological information travels through time across generations.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about it. If you're a mix of your parents, why don't you look exactly like a perfect 50-50 average of the two of them? And how on earth does a trait just completely skip a generation, only to randomly pop back up in your kids? Well, to answer that, we've got to shatter a really common illusion. A lot of us just kind of implicitly assume biological inheritance is this smooth, perfect blending of two people. But if that were actually true, all our unique features would eventually just blur into this one generic middle ground, right? Old distinct traits would vanish forever. But as we literally see in our own families all the time, they don't.
So picture it like this. If inheritance was actually like blending paint in a bucket, mixing red and white would just make pink. The original sharp colors would be gone forever, right? Completely diluted. But genetics doesn't work like paint at all. It works way more like transmission. Think of it like dealing cards from a deck. Genes are passed on as discrete, individual units. A card can be dealt out, held completely hidden in your hand for a while, and then played and revealed in a totally different round. That right there is the fundamental reason why a trait can seem to vanish completely in one generation, only to dramatically reappear later on. It's all about transmission, guys, not averaging. Now, if genes are these discrete little units getting passed around like playing cards, what exactly are they? Well, a massive misconception is that genes act like little sticky labels. They aren't just some sticker slapped on your forehead that says brown eyes or tall. No, genes are active biological instructions. Think about a setting on your smartphone. A label simply says, hey, this is dark mode. But the underlying instruction actually changes how the entire phone behaves, right? It shifts the colors, manages the battery power, the whole shebang. A gene is that active instruction. It's literally telling your cells what to build, when to build it, and exactly how much of it to make.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this entire biological chain breaks down into a super simple, everyday analogy that just clicks. Think of your DNA as the place where information is stored. It's basically a massive family cookbook. A gene? Well, that's just one useful section of that information. It's a single recipe. Then the cell is the kitchen, where those instructions are actively being read and prepped. The protein is the actual work getting done, the cooked dish. And finally, the trait is the result we actually see, the final meal on the table. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. When parents pass down genetics, they are never passing down the finished meal. They're passing down the cookbook.
And because we're dealing with instructions instead of finished products, all that biological complexity starts to make a whole lot more sense. Honestly, biology is wonderfully messy. In the real world, one gene often influences multiple outcomes. Imagine a main power switch for a huge building. Flipping it might turn on the lobby lights, fire up the kitchen fans, and activate the office charging ports all at the exact same time. On the flip side, you can have multiple genes working together to build just one single trait. Think of a construction crew building a road. One worker levels the dirt, another lays the asphalt, maybe a third paints the lines. If any single worker changes what they do even a little bit, the whole road changes. And that is exactly why traits like height don't fit into neat little boxes, but instead follow along this huge gradual spectrum.
But here's the kicker. Just having the instruction doesn't guarantee the exact same outcome every single time. And here's why. If a gene is like a musical score, the environment is the orchestra actually playing it. The sheet music gives you the notes, sure, but the final sound? That depends heavily on the musicians, the instruments, even the acoustics of the room. In biology, environmental factors like nutrition, stress, temperature, they are that orchestra. They directly influence how loudly or quietly a gene's instructions are actually carried out. The gene provides the potential, absolutely, but it's the environment that truly shapes the final expression. Let's see how this all builds into the core engine of genetics. Inheritance works because offspring receive one copy of many different genes from each parent, combining into a completely brand new arrangement. I can't stress this enough. You don't get a merged average plan. You carry two distinct, separate copies of these instructions. Imagine two control knobs on a complex machine, okay? One inherited from your mother, one from your father. The machine doesn't just pick favorites, it reads both settings simultaneously. And the final output? It's based entirely on the unique combination of those two knobs working side by side. This dual control system naturally leads us to a term you've probably heard thrown around a lot: dominance. But let's clear up a major misconception right off the bat. Dominance does not mean a gene is stronger, or better, or healthier. Not at all. It simply means that one version of a gene is just more visible in the trait than the other version when they happen to be paired together. It's strictly an issue of visibility, not some biological cage match, you know? The hidden version isn't destroyed, it's not useless, it just isn't the instruction taking center stage in that particular combination.
Imagine two flashlights shining in a dark room together. The bright light represents our highly visible trait, and the dim light is our hidden instruction. If both flashlights are turned on at the same time, your eyes naturally just focus on the bright one, right? You barely even notice the dim light. But it is absolutely still on. It hasn't gone anywhere. And this brilliantly explains how a dim light gene variant can travel quietly, generation after generation, completely hidden in the family line, until one day it happens to be paired with another dim light. And then, boom, suddenly it's the only thing illuminating the room. Which brings us to why siblings can end up being so remarkably different from each other. If you pick away just one single idea from this entire explainer, make it this: inheritance is not a photocopier. A photocopier makes near identical copies. If genetics worked like that, you and your siblings would literally be exact clones. Instead, inheritance acts way more like a filter or a reshuffler. It takes the exact same source material, that family deck of cards, and deals a completely new, entirely unique hand to every single child. Same source material, totally new arrangement. That's why your siblings might share your basic facial structure but have a wildly different hair texture or eye color.
So the really crucial point here is how all these individual pieces fit together into one beautifully elegant system. Let's just quickly recap the core steps. First, information is carried forward as discrete units, not some blended blur. Second, two parental versions of these instructions are combined. Third, depending on the specific pairing they end up in, instructions are either hidden or revealed. And fourth, the final trait is actually expressed within and heavily influenced by the living environment. This right here is the major paradigm shift we've been aiming for. You're no longer looking at inheritance as this messy, mysterious blending of traits, but as a highly structured, totally logical system of transmitted instructions.
Which leaves us with this final, kind of mind-blowing thought. If children always received identical gene combinations, biological diversity would just completely collapse. Variation isn't a mistake or an accident. It is arguably biology's single most important feature, because it gives nature its options. Knowing that these discrete units are constantly being shuffled, hidden, and passed along, you gotta wonder, what hidden instructions are traveling quietly through you right now, just waiting to be revealed in the next generation? I mean, it completely changes how you look at yourself, your family, and the incredible logic of biological diversity all around us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a powerful new mental model to take out into the real world.